Hey, what's up friends, you can CPC back here today with CPC Week 6 going up against NarthVader. So this is a guy that he's pretty well known in the draft community. I've stumbled across his channel recently and I've enjoyed his content quite a lot. I think he's definitely he's a guy on the up in terms of YouTube, and he's a good draft player as well. I definitely recommend you go and check out his stuff. He's definitely a solid player and he's one of the better players in the CPC in my opinion. And yeah, it's definitely going to be fun to play him. He has a very threatening team. He's got the Mega Latios team. I think he was a fill-in actually for TCMTL, so an old CFA buddy of mine. And Narth came to fill his shoes, so definitely a worthy replacement. He's got a very threatening team with Mega Latios. He's got the Buzzwall, the P2, and the Azu you see on screen. This is actually one of his Z-eligible ones, so Z Belly Drum is a thing, potentially. He's got Salazzle, Celebi, as well as a team of threats with other stuff he left on the bench. He has like low tier mons like Braviary and Mightina, but he also has a couple of other solid mons on his squad. They're escaping me right now, but this is the 6 I expect him to bring. Porygon 2 was the one mon I didn't think. I thought something else might come over this, but the rest of these 5 mons here were exactly what I thought he'd bring. Nonetheless, that doesn't really make it any easier to face. I mean, definitely threatening mons. Salazzle is a big threat versus me. Buzzwall could be, depending on his set. Mega Lati is a threat, but I do have the checks on deck for that, so going to be interesting. Depending on what his Azu set is, this could indeed be a thick fat trapping set for Zard. Thus I've got a Mariana set to be able to trap Azu as well if he decides to Whirlwind Paratrap me. So yeah, jumping into the team we have today, we have a pretty solid autonomized physical Celesteela. Does a lot of work to his team. Wakanberry mainly here for the Mega Lati, because if this thing gets some Carmines up, it's a pretty big threat to my team, although I do have some physical checks to it. Having Heavy Slam on Celi to do like a solid 60 minimum is very solid versus such a big threat. I can chew like plus 3 T-Bolt from Lati after rocks, which is kind of insane. And yeah, it's just very solid versus the rest of his team. Really can put in work. Then we have a pretty bulky DD Zard. Goes nuts versus his team, bar a thick fat Azu, which could definitely potentially come if he wants to go for more of a defensive route. Yeah, he really doesn't have much of this on his squad. Obviously, like physically defensive P2 with Toxic could be a bit annoying. Foul Play won't be doing too much though, because of Zard's naturally high defense. I will win that exchange 1v1 if he's relying on Foul Play, and Narth's a smart guy. I think he'll realize that something like Toxic is necessary to beat a Zard 1v1. So yeah, Zard is definitely looking like a threat here though. It just freely blitzes on a lot of his team, and if I can remove Lati, he really doesn't have much outside of Salazzle to pose an offensive threat to it, outspeeding it, bar like a Scarf or max speed timid Celebi. So that's good to know. The next one we have here is my pretty speedy Crook. So this is a pretty speedy but very specially defensive, like bulky Crook, capable of checking Lati to an extent. Getting a Rocks is going to be really nice this game. Like, chances are his Lati isn't removal because he's going to want to pressure me to remove my Zard. That's how a lot of people will try and approach Zard, and I'm fully aware of this. So yeah, having Rocks up will be huge for this game, chipping down the Salazzle, moving its opportunities to switch in freely versus my team, and really just punishing his mons, making it easier for stuff like Zard and Celi to put in the work. Very spit F set, as I mentioned. I got Lom on here in case Red wants to burn me. I can always guarantee Pursuit Trap that, cleaning up, making Celi's life easy with the Autonomize. Then I've got an ear belt, predominantly physically offensive Gren. Can really just put in work, U-turn, Surf, Gunk Shot, P2 just doesn't die. Surf 2 KOs, offensive Buzzwall, and then U-turn and Night Slash deals solid damage to Lati. Then I've got a nice Scarfed Latios here. I can revenge a ton of his team. Once I remove P2 and Azu, I can spam Draco. I can also just really threaten his team late game with Psychic once Celebi and Lati are gone, so that's very nice. Then we have the nice little LCM on here, mini Toxapex here with the Infestation Toxic. So the kind of concept behind this set is if he does opt to bring, worst case scenario for my Zard is that he brings a thick fat Azu with Whirlpool and Perish Song. If he does opt to do that, I can always go hard into my Mariana. The turn he Whirlpools, and I can proceed to infestation him when he goes to the Parasong if he is that set. The reason this is a pretty solid strat is because even if he is like a huge power Azu, this walls it anyway. So Mariana is a Mariani, someone corrected me in my comments last week, is a pretty solid switch into offensive Azu anyway. So it also helps buffer hits from stuff like Salazzle and Buzzwall. So that's the team. Very happy with it. And yeah, Narth has brought a very solid team himself. He brought 5 out of the 6 mods I thought he should bring. So gonna jump into it. I'm gonna lead off with my Crook here, my Gren, I should say. Gren led off nicely versus his potential Rocker in Celebi. It also led off nicely with something like a Salazzle trying to threaten my Zard turn 1. Reason I led off with Gren as well is I felt like he'd want to predict me to lead with Charizard to pressure his obvious Rocker. Like, kind of mind games turn 1, I felt like he'd want to lead off with a mon that can threaten my Zard, which would be intended to threaten his Rocker, which is Celebi, and also Zard matches up really nicely versus the rest of his team. So that was why I led off with Gren, because it does provide immediate chip on Laddie. It also kind of reveals his spread to me, which is important. And chances are this Laddie has T-Bolt in order to hit my Water types, as well as my Celesteela. So going for a U-turn here. I don't think he's obviously not going to click Psychic. He's not going to click Draco because he could click Draco, but I doubt he will. And because I do have Selly in the back, which could potentially be Spadef. And from the way Narth plays, he likes to make some kind of aggressive plays most of the time. And I don't think he'd go for like a Draco turn 1 when I do have a potentially Spadef Celesteela in the back. So I'm going to U-turn here, as I'm going to go hard out into my bulky Crook, who can obviously be immune to the T-Bolt, soaking it up, which is very solid. And the nice thing about this is like I'm out of range of a Draco. Draco does 78 to 92 max, so I'm either gonna get my rocks up here or knock out this threat. Now I don't, for all Narth knows, I could be like Scarf. If I'm Scarf Jolly Crook, I just kill him with Pursuit, even if he stays in, assuming he's not defensive, not like a really bulky set. And based off that U-turn damage, I can confirm he is no bulk. So this is like purely offensive Laddie, and this means that he is definitely in range of a Pursuit from my Crook. And if I'm adamant, then it's just like not even any question. It's not even a roll or anything. So I do expect him to stay in here. If he's watched my stuff, he'll probably know that I do like a bit of Pursuit, and chances are he will, if anything, just want to go for the attack here, because if I'm not Scarf and he switches out, then he's going to lose his Laddie for no reason. Whereas if I'm like just offensive, like Band or something, or like Mixed Life Orb, Aerial Ace to the Buzzball, he can actually potentially knock me out if I'm just like an offensive set with Draco. So I go for knockoff here because I can remove the Laddie if he does stay in. Worst case scenario, he goes into Buzzwall and knock off that thing's item, making it easier for the rest of my team to take on. And then I can get up rocks in the following turn as I do outspeed the Buzzwall, or get up rocks later on stuff like P2. I can also preserve this Crook to knock off the Eviolite on this Porygon 2, which will be very important. But in true Gypsy fashion, I get crit turn 2, so shout out to the ITL. I get crit, and that's very unfortunate because this Laddie would have died, and you're going to see later it would have meant that he had one less sack to Zard, but obviously that's not anyone's fault, that's just the game. So going to go into my Gren here and just going to go for U-turn here as I do get the chip off on this Porygon 2. So I'm now going to go hard out into my Mariana. Now here the Toxic is obvious, so I want to lure in the Celebi. Like, I have to play, like, I'm instantly on the back foot because of that turn 2 crit, so I have to play aggressively to put myself in a solid position here. So I'm going to make the double out to Zard, expecting him to go hard out into Celebi to set up rocks and soak up the potential Toxic aimed at this P2, as that is what he indeed does do. He goes up to Celebi here, as I can now just go into Zard on the double, and now I could just, I believe I Flare Blitz this turn. Could have Dragon Danced, but if he damage off on whatever he brought in was, I think I either Dragon Dance or I Flare Blitz here. Yeah, I do Blitz there, because Blitz killed max HP Celebi. It also gave me information on the Azu. The reason the reason I Blitz here was if he is like a really defensive, thick fat Azu. If I went for DD, I didn't know that. I didn't gain any information. This is important. If if he was thick fat Azu and I clicked DD there, just thinking I could flare blitz the next turn and scout damage, determine his set, it'd already be too late by that point, because he would have been able to go for the whirlpool and proceed to trap me with Perish Song, and you know, kill me like that. But going for flare blitz gave me damage on the Azu if he was pure power, and it also helped me a huge amount. Also helped me determine if he was a defensive set, meaning I could go hard onto my Toxapex, my mini Pex the next turn. It also got damage off on this P2, could have potentially crit or burnt, which is nice. It also lets me gauge what sort of P2 set he is, as that U-turn damage previously by Gren wasn't too indicative of his spread, so his P2 is going to just heal up here with the recover as I do go for the DD. I now have to like rely on Zard taking this P2 low. If I can get this thing toxic, that'll be really solid, although I don't think Narth is going to allow my Mariana to toxic it, but we'll have to see about that. I do go for Blitz here. It does over half. This is solid. I can potentially 2 carry this thing here, as he does fire off the toxic, so he took a very long time to make this turn. I think he was trying to lull me into a false sense that he didn't have toxic there or something, but like me switching out there wasn't really like affordable at that point, because I didn't get to have rocks up. Like, I need all the offensive pressure on this team I can muster, and DDing up with Zard and punching some initial holes is really what I'm forced to do now. So I'm going to go for Blitz here, as he does sack off the laddie here, and this is what I meant by how that turn 1 crit was, turn 2 crit was unfortunate, because not only would I have been able to set up rocks at some point in this game with my Crook, he would have had one less sack to Zard, so he would have had to either risk P2 dying there to flare blitz, a second flare blitz, as the first one did 52 and he was at 48 at that stage, or he would have had to go out to Azu, who would have just taken like a clean half from a flare blitz. So depending on his spread, if he was like max HP, he would have taken like 40. So that was unfortunate, but it is what it is. He's going to drop off Laddie there to the blitz, as Slazzle's going to come out here now. Obviously I can take this thing out with a +1 Dragon Claw, but if he is scarfed, I need to respect the potential scarfed. The nice thing about Zard is, like, although I'm kind of walled by P2 because of Toxic and Recover, I can pivot between Zard and Mini Pex, continue to roost up, stall that thing out of recovers, and always bring my Zard in on the P2, because T-Bolt, Ice Beam, Toxic Recover, which is likely his coverage, cannot do anything to my Zard. So that was a scenario that I was keeping in mind. If I was forced into that, I had to obviously keep Zard around. It also threatens like his whole team really nicely, and if I determine this thing isn't a scarfed Slazzle and he's indeed bluffing at this point, this will definitely going to be a solid wink on a +1. So I'm going to switch out here, going to go out into my Mariani, as he makes the double into his Azumarill here. So that turn, this turn was interesting. I thought he may either be baiting my Mariana in, and he was indeed a trapping Azu, and he just didn't expect me to have infestation, or he was either just trying to whittle me down with toxic damage, baiting me to go for the Dragon Claw there, which obviously Azu was immune to. But I think it was honestly the latter. I don't think, as is revealed later, I don't think this is a trapping set, but either way I thought it was quite interesting. He's now going to switch out into Porygon 2 as I go for the Toxic. Nothing really wanted to take a Toxic there. If he switched into Lazzle, I could just 2 carry on with Scald. But because he goes out to Porygon 2 here and choose the Toxic, that's very nice to me. I know here he's probably going to recover, because he wants to keep P2 high, and this is where this set is going to come through, because I can just trap him with Infestation. I've EV'd this Mini Pex not to be 2 carried by T-Bolt, so I can just proceed to roost up, as T-Bolt does 45 with Chew. I can just recover up and basically remove P2 from the game, which is very nice for Selly. It's very nice for Zard, although Zard did roost up on it. It was going to struggle to beat at 1v1 if it just continually spammed recover, as I am now Toxic. He's now going to go into Selby here, and obvious rocks are obvious, so I'm going to go hard into Zard to try and get a roost up. I contemplated roosting here, which would have been solid, but also getting damage off on anything on his team with Flare Blitz is really nice. If he wants to go into Slazzle here, I do like 70% or just about with Flare Blitz, putting it in range of a Heavy Slam from a Selly, as well as like a Scald from Mini Paxes and anything from Gren and Laddie. So he is going to go hard out into his Slazzle here, and I am just going to go for the Flare Blitz. Now at this stage I was expecting him to be a Scarfed Slazzle at this point, in case he wanted to like have a Revenger to +1 Zard, or like Scarf Laddie. I don't know, Scarf Slazzle is very weak and it's kind of bad versus me, but I thought it was likely, or it was definitely worth scouting for here, as I am going to go out to Mini Pex on his potential Scarfed Dragon Pulse. Obviously, like, non-Scarfed Slazzle would have outsped me at that point, but the way he brought it in earlier, I thought it could have been a Scarfed Slazzle, but earlier in the match, my side actually did switch out before this Slazzle, which confirmed that he was indeed not Scarfed, so that Dragon Pulse reveals he's actually Specs, as that thing is a threat versus me for sure, versus any team really. I'm going to sack off my Zard here to the rocks, as he makes the double out into Celebi here. Now the nice thing about this is that I know this is Specs, so I know that my Gren can take it on. It's not Scarfed, I don't have to worry about a Scarfed Slazzle taking me out with Sludge Wave. And I can keep my Gren healthy. If I can keep this Gren only having taken one round of rocks, I keep it out of range of +1 Azu's, +6 Azu's Aqua Jet. I have evaded to be able to lift that 100% after rocks. So I'm going to go into my Celesteela here as he goes out into his Celebi. Now this turn I am going to go for the Autonomize in case he wanted to go Salazzle here, scouting for my Z-Fly, as he's just actually going to reveal T-Wave, which is a bit frustrating for my Celesteela, but it's okay. Like, it's not the end of the world. I don't really need the speed that much. And this turn, I'm going to go for the Autonomize here. I make a miscalculation with the speed, and I felt like I thought I'd outspeed Salazzle after another Autonomize, but I actually kind of tweaked and miscalculated how the speed worked with Para, so I'm actually going to be undersped by my Salazzle. Now, the reason I go for Autonomize there over attacking was because I felt like Healing Wish was a very likely play from that Celebi. He'd revealed to be T-Wave, Stealth Rocks. Now, Recover, like, +1 attack is kind of weird versus me. I thought he could be like T-Wave, Stealth Rocks, attack, like one single attack, and then Healing Wish to bring back something like Laddie, or even like late game Azu, or even the Specs Salazzle versus me. But he does actually hard switch out, so had I just gone for the Heavy Slam there, or even just like done any sort of attack, this thing would have died. It died to Heavy Slam, guaranteed. I think he made the switch out to Salazzle, sacking it for a potential like Z move coming from my Celesteela, so either way, like, this thing should have died, but I did make a miscalculation with Autonomize there, as I will actually underspeed the Salazzle even at +3 under, considering I'm paralyzed here. So now I'm forced to go out into my my Mini Pex here to scout what he wants to go for. He does go for the Fire Blast, as now I am going to go into my Laddie here on the Fire Blast. I will not be too OKO'd by this, as it does 41, does a solid chunk, but now I can just go for the Psychic. Obviously, a bit of a 50-50 there between Psychic and Draco. Draco would have done a ton, like around 60 to this max HP Celebi, but the threat of Azu in the back is too real. Z Azu is a threat, and like, I can't really give that thing a free opportunity to set up. Letting this thing come in freely is a lot better than letting Azu come in freely, as I can always just go into my Celesteela here, as that is what I opt to do, as he just... I go into Mariana. I go into Mariana in case he wanted to go out into his Salazzle, predicting my Celesteela to come in, but he actually makes the double out into Azu, scouting for... No, he goes for Gleam there, I'm thinking a few turns ahead. He goes for Gleam, which is solid, because now I can recover up. So he's revealed Gleam, T-Wave, and Stealth Rocks, which still makes me think this could be, and probably should be, Healing Wish, because like Roost, Dazzling Gleam is doing pretty much nothing to my team. Like, it hits Gren and it hits Laddie for decent damage and Crook for decent damage, but it's not doing a whole lot, and I really do feel like he's probably Healing Wish at this stage in the game, but I have no way to confirm that. I'm going to recover up here as he goes out into his Salazzle, and it's here he reveals Corrosion Toxic, which is a nice bring for sure, as now I just recover up, scouting if he had like Hidden Power Ground or something like that. Now I'm going to go for the Toxic here, as he does go out into Celebi to soak that up. As this following turn, I think I do just go for Scald, as he goes out into Buzzwole. I felt as though that turn he'd hard out into Salazzle, expecting me to go into my Celesteela as well, because if I infestated that Celebi, he would have essentially died. He'd shown to have Dazzling Gleam. He would have either died, or he would have, in the long run, or he would have been forced to Healing Wish. So I felt at that point he'd likely just switch back into Salazzle, but he actually goes out into the Buzzwole, and we get a Scald Burn here. So that is some slight revenge hacks for not for getting crit turn 1, although I would have got rocks up, which would have been enormous for Salazzle. So like, it's kind of justice in a sense. This burn was frustrating for Narth, but some justice, I suppose, as now I can just recover up this turn, as he does reveal Roost. I wanted to recover up in case he was a Scarf set, as he hasn't shown to have a Scarf. Scarf's obviously not necessary in every game, but you never know with a team like this. Scarf Buzzle is a mon that he's brought in past games, and yeah, just scouting that is important. So he revealed Roost, so he's probably like Roost bulk up 2 attacks, as this turn I do go hard out into my Celesteela. I am Wakanberry, so even if he crits me through burn, I will be able to live that easily, because I am like Wakana, quite bulky. But he's going to go for bulk up here, as he goes for Brick Break with Chew and just knock him out with the Air Slash. So that's pretty nice for us. We get the attack boost, as he's going to bring in his Salazzle here. Now I'm forced in this situation to sack off my my mini Pex, unfortunately, as he got a really high roll there. So the roll is something like 36 to like 43, I think, is the roll from Fire Blast. So he's been getting really high rolls with Fire Blast here. So if he gets like a very low roll here, we will be able to survive and take him out. Either way, if he knocks us out, I just bring in Gren and click I click Surf into Gunk Shot, which claims a kill, versus his last 2 remaining mons. Actually, I clicked Night Slash into Gunk Shot, and that definitely claims a kill versus the Celebi or Azu. So he is gonna, actually, my mini Pex is gonna hang on. He's gonna chew that Fire Blast and take a Salazzle out with a Skull there. So yeah, that just meant Gren didn't have to like reveal coverage, I suppose. But now I am going to go into my Celesteela as he goes into Azu. Now here, I went Azu in case, I went Silly in case he went Celebi, because if I went Gren, I would have been forced to U-turn, which meant I would have ultimately taken 2 rounds of rocks. And as I mentioned earlier, I am EV to take a +6 Aqua Jet after 1 round, and I don't want to risk, being put in range of that. So going to Selly, provided I don't get parried, is my best play. Had I gone Laddie there, I could have like Draco'd the Celebi, but if he's like recover, he lives 1 and then recovers up, or just goes hard out into Azu on my Draco and then sets up. It's not an ideal situation. Going out to Select was my best play here to ensure myself the win. He's going to go for Knock, revealing that he's more than likely Knock over Waterfall reveals that he's more than likely Belly Drum, because Belly Drum would be like Belly Drum, Aqua Jet, Knock Off and Play Rough versus me. Knock Off obviously for the mini Pex, and as well as the just a guaranteed hit against the Decidueye. But because he'd go for Knock Off, that's not bad. It didn't take me out. That confirms in my mind that he is more than likely Z Belly Drum. So we do 57 with a Heavy Slam. It's a clean 2 KO. As this turn he is going to go for the Z Belly Drum here. Now he could have knocked me out. He definitely could have knocked me out here with his Azumarill. He could have knocked me out instead of going for the Z Belly Drum. But then I would have just brought in Gren or Laddie and Revenge in the next turn, and Gren beats Celebi. So it was kind of like over for him at that point, because I had got the initial 57 off with the Heavy Slam. But he's going to try and Belly Drum up in hopes that I either choke and switch out, which wouldn't even necessarily be a choke in the sense that I still had Gren to Revenge, but if I had got parried there, that could have been, like, again, it wouldn't have really mattered too much as long as I hit Gunk with my Gren, but going for like Belly Drum was his play there. I suppose he could have relied on a para and then taken out my Laddie and crit me with Aqua Jet on Gren, I suppose, or relied on me missing Gunk. But we do take him out there with Celesteela, as in comes Celebi to just take me out with a Dazzling Gleam, and Gren will be able to come in and finish off Celebi with a U-turn. So that was a very fun game against Narth. Definitely impacted by some early game hacks, but his Buzzwole did get burnt late game, which meant that my Celesteela was at a higher amount of health to take a hit from the Azu late game. So it did sort of balance itself out there. Definitely unfortunate that it was impacted by hacks on both sides, because obviously it was a fun game, and it would have been even more interesting to see how it would have turned out had that not occurred. But yeah, definitely props to my opponent Narth for a good game. I thought he played really well, and he brought a really good team. I'm excited to see how he goes the rest of the season. Definitely recommend you guys go and check him out, because he makes some pretty solid content, and I think he's definitely one of the up and comers in the format. So go and check him out. If you guys enjoyed, drop a like if you did, and let me know your thoughts in the comments. yeah, NPL finals should be going up over the next few days. I think Rizzy and I will be playing either tomorrow or the day after. So yeah, get hyped for that. Look forward to that, and I'll catch you guys next time.